Well, mine shows 6:30, but benefits being in Atlantic. Here you go.
I believe I'm muted. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first session tonight of PEO's 2024 Council Election All Candidate Meetings. My name is Marisa Sterling, and I will be the moderator for tonight's discussion. Wanted to let you know that if you'd like to add closed captions for tonight's discussion, you can locate the closed caption tab along the bottom menu of your Zoom screen and click on captions. Tonight, we will hear from the candidates for the 2-year term of Councillor-at-Large. There is one vacant position to be elected. The 4 candidates participating in tonight's meeting are Stephen Showassi, Branislav Gozhikov, Victor Lan, and Randy Walker. The electronic meetings with the candidates via this webcast enable voters to learn more about the candidates and the PEO election issues to inform their vote. The profession does need license holders to vote in order to form a council to guide PEO in the coming years. Voters were able to pose questions online in advance of this discussion. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. In accordance with the approved protocol for the all candidates meetings, as a moderator, I may shorten the questions and not read out preambles to questions. I may select any question. I may remove offensive and duplicate questions, and may add questions not on the platform. Each candidate will be provided 2 minutes for opening remarks. I will then direct a question to a candidate. That candidate will have 1 minute to respond to that question. After the candidate has responded, the 3 remaining candidates will have 1 minute to address and comment on the first candidate's response to that question. Following the question period, the candidates will have 90 seconds each for closing remarks. The order of speakers was determined by a draw earlier this evening. Please note the views and opinions expressed on this broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views of PEO and are the responsibility of the candidates. So without further delay, let's get started with the opening remarks. So the first candidate for Councillor-at-Large is Stephen Showassi. Stephen, your opening remarks.
Thank you. And thank you for those who are tuning in. Thank you for your interest. Much appreciated, I'm sure, by all of us. First off, I'd like to explain what concerns me about the PEO's direction at the moment. The introduction of peak, in my view, was inappropriate and done without proper authorization by the membership. There was no referendum that was promised. Okay, now what does this do? Well, lots of things. It's not just the requirements that you have to do some online follow-up training from your original degrees. It's a requirement of PEO to evaluate and administer it, which is not a trivial task. There are some 85,000 of us in the province. I counted on the website, I believe there's 51 different disciplines, from aeronautical to transportation engineering. There's a lot of administration involved. I'm also a chartered professional accountant. I've watched the chartered professional accountants go through a similar process. They started with almost anything was accepted. That is to say, if you did some online reading, you could that would count, and blah blah blah. Now I'm getting emails from the accountants saying, "Here, this course will get you X hours towards your qualification requirement." Pretty scary stuff. These courses are not cheap, and they involve some time. Usually they're online, but nevertheless, they're not cheap. And they have to be administered by somebody at the PEO. So there's a crossroads here. There's going to be some costs involved, and I offer myself, as I mentioned, a chartered professional accountant, to use my expertise as such to keep an eye on the costs involved in this administration of this new program. Again, it wasn't my idea and I don't favor it at all. Thank you very much. And thank you again for your interest.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, for those opening remarks. We will now hear from the second candidate for Councillor-at-Large, and that is Victor Lam. So Victor, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Marissa. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Victor Lam, a candidate for the Councillor-at-Large. I have been volunteering at the PO SCOP chapter for over 14 years, and I have served all positions of the chapter board of executives, including executive secretary, treasurer, chapter vice chair, chapter chair, and chapter past chair. I'm also chair or member of the following chapter subcommittees: GLP subcommittee, licensing assistance program subcommittees, 30x30 subcommittees, annual barbecue and high-tea subcommittees, search committees, seminar committees, licensing presentation ceremony subcommittees, various student event subcommittees. In addition, I had take part in PO leadership conferences, regional congress, and PO annual general meetings. At the chapter, I have the wonderful opportunities to work with the PO members, PO head office, PO council, provincial government, as well as the public. Professionally, I have almost 40 years of extensive experience with engineering consulting services, construction industry, and infrastructure development, including over 20 years in Ontario. I'm also a member of OSBI. I'm a member of CSEA, Canada Structural Engineers Association, a lead AP certified by the Canada Green Building Council, and a member of Society of Fire Protection Engineers. Furthermore, I'm also a fellow of Engineers Canada. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Victor, for that introduction. And we will now go to the third candidate for Councillor-at-Large, and that is Branislav Goshkavich.
Greetings to all. I will be very brief in my opening remarks. I would just like to highlight a few points. In my opinion, public interest is of utmost importance and shall not be compromised. Public trust in PEO is to be strengthened. Also, PEO as Association of Self-Governing Regulated Profession must modernize and adapt its role, following as an example other exemplary professional associations. And the last one would be, we have to provide full support for FARPACTA, which is extremely important for foreign trained and experienced professionals. That would be all from me.
Thank you so much, Branislav, for those opening remarks. So the fourth candidate for Councillor-at-Large is Randy Walker. Randy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Marissa. Good evening, everyone. As some of you may know already, I am Randy Walker, Randall Walker, from the Quinte area. I've been a member of the chapter here since 2007. I served as chapter chair till 2014 and past chair since then. Regional and Eastern Regional Councillor from 2019 to 2023. I have a varied background in construction, heavy mechanical, heavy industrial, electrical, as well as automation program, contract management, and commissioning for large buildings and small buildings alike. I am running here tonight to continue the work that we have done for the past 4 years as councillor, as Eastern Regional, to be part of many changes that we have implemented at PO, and they have been many. My running here has everything to do with ensuring future graduates and incoming engineers from other countries are all treated fairly, and each has the opportunity to become a member of our group, and we set the future, and I, for one, like being a part of that. I believe that PEO has the relevance and a lot of responsibility to keep Ontario and Canadian engineering at the forefront of the world stage. Our country is small by population, but strong in education and well-trained workforce. I would like to see this grow, and Ontario, and by extension Canada, be at the forefront of education and innovation. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to all the candidates this evening. I hope everybody has a great time, and thank you to those that have all logged in for taking the time to be part of our little production this evening.
Thank you very much, Randy. So that concludes the opening remarks segment. And now we're going to go to the audience questions. So our first question is going to be for Stephen. And the question is, what do you see as the most important challenge facing PEO today? And if successful in your election bid, how will you address this challenge on council in the next year? And Stephen, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Thomas Sowell, a famous accountant, said that there are no solutions, only trade-offs. I point to our PEO as an example. At one extreme, we have virtually no assertion that the person is competent. At the other extreme, we're testing them almost every day with new online course requirements, again, on a daily basis. The two extremes. We can't go to either extreme. Neither extreme is appropriate. We have to balance those extremes and come up with a point where we are confident that we can fulfill our mission to the public. That being, of course, to make sure that the title engineer is not abused and that those who possess it are competent and will serve our profession well.
Great, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Stephen. Victor, you have a minute now if you'd like to respond to this question and what you heard from Stephen.
Yes, and I think the PEO facing the challenges, and there are two things. One is the service provided by the members. Some members do not provide good service to the public. Second is about the processing of the licensing. We heard that a lot of EITs, former EITs, they took them for many years to get a license. So, so council, I think council should address the challenging by issue all licensed professionals are qualified, taking action against the unlicensed individuals, investigating complaints, disciplining members for incompetence and professional misconduct, preparing practice guideline and performance standards. Also, and now we have a CPT program also, which help to qualify the engineers members. Also, and now we have a new engineer license process, which will help to expedite the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. Yes. Next, Branislav, you have 1 minute if you'd like to respond to what you heard so far.
I would just like to add that those relaxed conditions or requirements for foreign trained engineers, particularly regarding experience, is very fair. However, we have to be sure before we issue the license to the individual that he has actually reasonable and acceptable depth and width of the knowledge, as well as understanding and ability to reasonably apply all those principles that are required for properly doing job.
Thank you very much, Branislav.
Pleasure.
Yes. So, Randy, would you like to take a minute to respond to what you've heard so far?
Yes, thank you, Marissa. What I see as the most important challenging facing PEO today actually has to do with our emerging disciplines. We are, I believe, a lot further behind the curve in Ontario for being able to have oversight in the upcoming engineering. So I mean the students coming up through the system, but we are also, as others have already said, we have issues with people coming in from other countries to ensure that their training is such that is meeting Canadian standards, and we are able to properly address all these items. As each country has variations on what they seem as good or bad, specifically software engineering, for example, self-driving cars, everybody picks that one. How do you program the car to properly not run into things? That's a quick question. with the advent of the AI that we've got coming up, if we don't get in front of this, we could be in very much trouble in Canada, in Ontario, and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. The second question is now going to go to Victor. So Victor, you will start off. So the question is, PEO's current strategic plan has a goal to improve the licensing processes without compromising public safety. And as of July 1st of 2023, the Ontario government required PEO to comply with fair access practices. So how will you ensure that PEO delivers transparent, accessible, equitable, and inclusive licensing processes for both Canadian and internationally trained and educated engineering graduates?
Yeah, thank you, Marisa. And I think, this new processing of licensing, engineering licensing, and so there's also opportunity, for the PEO to improve the old licensing application process, and so now and yes. So now we the new system eliminate the 1 year clear experience, and but I think it's a new system, and we also have examinations or something to make sure the candidates are qualified for engineering work in Canada. Which is very important, because the conditions are different from China, from Canada and other countries.
Thank
for
you,
some
Victor.
discipline of the engineers.
Thank you very much. So we have an opportunity now, Branislav, if you would like to take a minute to comment on what you heard.
Well, as I said before, we now have to define the method, and I think one of the acceptable methods would be exams. How to basically to screen the depth, the breadth of the knowledge of the applicants, their understanding of engineering principles, as well as ability to reasonably apply them. An additional actually requirement would be to screen their thought process. In other words, to explore as much as we can how those applicants think as an engineer.
Thank you, Branislav.
Pleasure.
Yes. Randy, would you like to take a minute to respond to what you've heard?
Thank you, Marissa. Yeah, FARPACTA has forced the PEO to enact a number of things that we're already working on. We're now just on a more accelerated schedule. We have more defined timelines than we had internally before. The one thing that I've always maintained is that we are a PEng. Your sex, how you identify, your country you come from is irrelevant. We strive and have been trying for many, many years to get PEO to be fair to all groups. But in the end, it's a PEng. We don't enact anything. We are not a government. We have to ensure that we are fair to all PEngs and that everybody has equal access to our group to become an engineer. What we do have to watch internally and externally is there any loopholes for schools coming in, international applicants, to properly vet them that they are indeed engineers. There are issues of fake schools, fake paperwork. So until we get that addressed, we have to really make sure that's occurring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. And Steve, would you like to take a minute to comment on what you've heard on this question?
Yes, again, I come back to the bureaucracy involved and the costs involved. That would be the perspective I would be taking on these types of issues. It's clear we all want to be fair, and that's admirable, and I think we are for the most part. As Randy said, the profession is open to anybody that's willing to write the exams and sit the exams and pass and whatnot, and behave appropriately. As Branislav was saying, it's hard to get in somebody's head, though, Branislav. That's the part that I struggle with, because the reasoning process, that's part of the examinations and the way they deal with problems. So we could test that to some degree. But the idea of the connotation being that we have to chat with them and make some kind of a subjective judgment on their thought process is not in my view a direction we should be taking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. So our next question is sort of a continuation of the one we just had that came from a voter. And the question submitted claimed that the license review process today actually has slowed down to beyond 12 months versus being completed within 6 months. What would you do on council in the next year to address the time taken to review and decide on a license application? And sorry, that question is going to go to Branislav.
Well, to answer that question reasonably and fairly, I would like to know what is the process, PO process for the assessing request for the application for the licensing. I'm not quite familiar with that because I worked as a volunteer with PO in another area, which is ERC. But I would say, and seems to me, that 6-month period is quite reasonable.
Okay, thank you very much, Branislav. Randy, would you like to comment on that response?
Yes, having been through a lot of the system and helping a lot of engineers do a lot of this, what I find to be a little more concerning has to do with the fairness that we have to give to everybody, because we have to do their experience. If you're an engineer in Ontario, you're a graduate engineer from one of our schools, it's pretty simple. You get your education, it's fully accepted, nobody questions it because we've already done the school. The second one is you go get your experience, a requirement. Our biggest problem that we have with this system is it's all run by volunteers. In order for us to do anything on a beating schedule, that means we have to hire people. Hire people costs money. That's an internal issue that we'd have to deal with. But if we want to ensure that we have a good timeline, then we have to have enough people in place to handle the influx of applications from all groups in order to deal with those systems in place, which means we actually have to pay people to do this on a more full-time basis versus a volunteer basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Stephen, would you like to comment on what you've heard?
Yes, we are a self-governing organization, and as such, we do rely on volunteers. In my view, that's appropriate. We need to involve the population of engineers. Again, there's 85,000 of us, roughly. We need to bring them on board and keep them interested and not centrally control everything for no other reason than it's expensive, as Randy stated. So I think the system's okay, except we've got to speed it up. It shouldn't take a year to evaluate these things. That's spinning people too long. We just can't have that. It's got to be improved. Again, I'd look at the related bureaucracy and the way things pass through quickly, and with a view to streamlining them and making them more efficient and thus cost effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And Victor, what would your response be to this question?
Yeah, thank you. And as the councillor-at-large, I will first have a meeting with the licensing department, have a meeting with the CEO or PEO, and found out the reason for delay the process. Second, we may have some changes or made to improve the current process of the licensing and to expedite the process. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Victor. The next question also looks in the licensing process, and this will be a question that Randy will have a chance to answer first. So the person who submitted the question stated a concern about the loss of the EIT status in Ontario, which is also known as the Engineering Intern or Engineer in Training Program. So what do you think of this PEO decision? Are you concerned? And if so, how are you concerned about the future engineering graduates and their engagement in PEO, in gaining engineering experience, and in applying for a PEng license? So Randy, you have a minute.
Thank you, Marissa. Yes, I have actually talked to our president about this very subject because this is near and dear to my heart. Before we even took the EIT program out, I requested that we change it over back to some other name. The reason the EIT program had to go, of course, was that we couldn't issue a PEO number, which is what we used to do, because they were not part of the system. But we could have done anything, kept the program in place as it was, just change its name, because what we are now losing are all of these at the chapter level, are all of these EITs or their equivalent getting out of school. We cannot capture them and we cannot help them. So anybody that needs help, they can't be part of our chapter system unless they understand it, are aware of it. Now, means we don't capture them, we can't send them emails, we can't send them help files because they're not part of our system. And that is a major issue I have going through the future to ensure that we have a good group of people and that the PEO and chapter systems can help these new people coming in.
Thank you, Randy. I'll move it over to Stephen now, if you'd like to take a minute to respond to that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Randy. I think that we need to, I lost my train of thought. We need to be efficient in this process. The idea that losing the EIT is something that is very, very sad. It's something that we need. We're only getting about 40% of the new grads enrolling as to become engineers, new engineering graduates. It's only about 40% of them are signing up for us. That's not good. This is a real threat to our profession. There's a lot of engineers that never sign a document, never use their seal. There's no ink on my seal. I got it in 1976. No ink on it. So we have to maintain relevance, and losing the EIT is a real threat. Thank you.
Victor, you have a minute to respond to this comment.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the EIT and is also important to the PEO. And but there maybe further study has to be made about the EIT. And I think EIT now has opportunity to contact the PEO members. They can know the process of the licensing. My personal experience is, and when I made the application for PEO, I was not asked for join the EIT. So I was not EIT, so which took me a very long time to get a license. So, and I think the PEO may consider to keep the EIT. Thank you.
Great. And Branislav, how would you like to respond in 1 minute?
Well, we can call it however we want, but fresh graduates need proper exposure to obtain experience, understanding, and ability to apply all those engineering principles properly in their work. The question is only the length of that exposure, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. But I do believe that the most important thing is proper exposure. In many cases, I have witnessed it, that EITs did not have proper exposure. And it's basically very unjust to them, and it's a wasting time, whatever. So how to define proper exposure? It's a different issue. But I think it's possible to specify that, and the organization which are employing young engineers should basically follow that.
Thank you. We're going to move to our next question. It relates to PEO strategic plan. So the plan has a goal to develop and update standards and practice guidelines. So this question is for Steve. What public protection issues would you direct PEO to develop standards and practice guidelines for in the coming year? And you have a minute.
I'd take a long look at the status quo, notwithstanding the recommendation of this group. The basic physics haven't changed much. Gauss's law, still Gauss's law as far as I'm concerned, same as it was back in '72. Things haven't changed much in regards to the basics. So the accreditation program that worked since the 30s, last decade, are still there. I inherited, my wife's father was an engineer, electrical engineer, class of 33 at Queens, and his textbook, I looked at it, it hasn't changed much. Anyway, that's part of the issue that I'm concerned about, with the issue with bureaucracy and the growth thereof.
Thanks, Dave. Victor, would you like to respond to what you heard?
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, and PO has two major challenges, and currently, one is the process of licensing. A lot of one is about the qualification of our members. So as a Councillor-at-Large, I will focus on improve and our standards and the guidelines to make sure all and licensed line professionals are qualified. Also, and take actions against unlicensed individuals. Also, and improve the licensing process. Thank you.
Thank you. And Branislav, your response.
A long time ago, I've heard a brilliant saying from one of my colleagues. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He actually took a no return journey, but anyway, he literally said, technicians and technologists must know what is in the code, but engineers must know why is it there, which makes a big difference. So I think that companies should develop their own design guidelines, which basically emphasizes clearly the code and standards which must be followed in their every day-to-day practice. And also the fundamental thing should be that they should know the difference between the code and the standard. It's possible, but this is the way that we should go. Not we, but whoever is dealing with those issues.
Thank you, Branislav. And Randy, would you like to take a minute to respond?
Yes, thank you. From a strategic standpoint, the PEO can only deal with these people if they become part of PEO. If we do not have our ducks in a row and have the proper paperwork in order, meaning we've defined it, we've identified it, and we make sure that anybody practicing this sort of thing, which we are still lax in due to emerging disciplines, we have all these people that graduate, can go work and never be part of the PEO. It doesn't matter how much of our strategic plan that we have. If they're not captured by us, they can do what they want. And no matter how many pieces of paper we throw out in the world. So we need to ensure, working with the government, working with our stakeholders, that these groups that are going to be taking the public interest, meaning we can damage the public in the future, we need to make sure they're captured and they're following the rules set forth by both the PEO, Engineers Canada, and the government in order to make sure they're doing their job properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Let me just pick up on your comment of stakeholders. So the next question, and it's going to be for Victor first, is another goal in PEO strategic plan is to refresh PEO's vision to ensure stakeholders see relevance and value in PEO. So whom do you identify as a key PEO stakeholder group or organization? And what do you think meaningful engagement with them might look like? Victor, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And I think the stakeholder of PEO are the public and the PEO members and the PEO chapters and also some other engineering associations, also provincial government. So now PEO already have some program like GRP, also the chapter leadership conferences. So which are the collect the stakeholders with the PEO. So PEO can pass their information to the stakeholders. So also get information from stakeholders to improve their service. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Branislav, would you like to comment?
Well, I think possible stakeholders would be federal government, which is also authority having jurisdiction for itself. contractors, associations, chapters too, and different organizations which deal with public safety, like ULC, and some others. That would be my say.
Great, appreciate it. Randy, over to you.
Yes, thank you. The strategic goal is to ensure stakeholders see relevance. I want to take that word, relevance and value in the PEO. The public are our biggest stakeholder and our biggest customer, but they actually really don't know what they want. They just want to be able to go up in an airplane and not fall from the sky, go across a bridge and not fall into the water or below, drive an electric vehicle that doesn't catch fire. If they're in a vehicle that's self-driving, it doesn't crash into something. The engineers themselves and the people that employ them are our biggest stakeholders that I find have our most relevance. If they don't find relevance in PEO, they won't join. They'll ignore us, and we will shrink, and then we'll become not part of anything. We'll just become irrelevant. So I believe very strongly that we need to get ahead of the emerging disciplines. I've said this multiple times, in order to make sure we have value to those we represent. Thank you.
And Steve, what about your response?
Okay. Stakeholders, the provincial government, through its legislation, the Professional Engineers Act, defines what we do and alludes to, of course, why we do it. So they are a definite stakeholder, and any consultation around the direction we take with respect to acting within the law, we'd have to involve them if we want to change that. So they would be a key stakeholder, but generally the public is the stakeholder that the government defines, that we are to protect the public from charlatans who erroneously claim to be engineers. So I always have to say the government is the provincial government is a key stakeholder, as of course is the public itself, as Randy indicated. That's why we exist, to protect the public. And to make sure our members are competent and remain so. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Our next question is going to touch on what we already heard from a few people, which is the PEO chapter system. So this question will first go to Branislav. So PEO has 36 chapters that function and host activities that are legally permitted for a regulator and may not be essential to effective board governance. So what is your view on the chapters? How should council deal with chapters in the coming year? Should they remain with PEO, for example? Should PEO ask OSPI to take over their management? Should PEO do something else with them? What are your thoughts for 1 minute, Branislav?
Well, fortunately, I was member of Ottawa PEO chapter for about 3 years, and I still find a lot of usefulness of that particular form of organization. Chapters really can well organize and well orient, particularly young engineers. And I do believe they have their role, they have their importance, and have the meaning. So I would keep them locally as they are now organized, but they should stay as they are. I would keep them under umbrella of PEO. They should not go to OSPE. Again, personal opinion.
Thanks, Branislav. Randy, what are your thoughts?
As the chapter system is my starting point in PEO back in 2007, brought in by a gentleman named John Fear, I believe the chapter system has a great amount of relevance. Much discussion has occurred over the years about should it be OSPI, should it be PEO? I believe it actually should be both. The chapter system is a main conduit to bring people up to the level we are talking about right now at council level. So should it be run by either group? No. I believe we actually should be joined together, where OSPI uses the chapter system for their mandate and the PEO uses the chapter system for its mandate. Both have an applicable set. Who runs it? That can be open for interpretation. Who would have day-to-day operation run? Could be OSPI, could be PEO. But I believe that both groups should run it together so that we both get the proper benefit from having the number of people and the education and the backgrounds that we all have. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Steve, your response.
Chapter system is much required. It should remain within the PEO. It's part of our volunteer-driven system. Volunteers are very important to the PEO, and we need to remind folks that we are a self-governing organization, and therefore our members, through their chapters, should be very much involved in the running of the PEO, and again in the protecting of the public. It also provides, of course, social aspects, contacts, and networking opportunities as well through the chapter process. But that's not its primary raison d'etre. It's there to help the PEO and help the self-governing function that the PEO has undertaken since 1922. We're self-governing. Thank you.
And Victor, your response.
Yeah, and the PEO's mandate is serving and protecting interest of the public, and OSPI the goal is the serving the interest of the members. So about the chapter, and I think they also have some functions and forward to the promoting the professional engineering in the public, also collect the public and the stakeholders to PEO. Also, and so it's hard to, but traditionally, and the chapter is run by the PEO, so a lot of members like that. But the chapter should run by PEO or OSPI, and it should be further studied. Also, yeah, the chapter may be joint operated by both organizations. Thank you.
Okay. So listen, the next question will be for Randy, and we've heard it already from a few candidates tonight already. For this role of Councillor-at-Large, what special skills or board experience do you bring to enhance the governance of PEO? So Randy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Marissa. Well, I've already been a council member for 4 years, and we had brought in at the beginning of my term in 2019, a governance board to oversee and do a lot of training with us. So I bring a lot of that to the table, and a lot of members, a lot of stuff. I mean, it's kind of hard to quantify, as each member brings something different to the table. As far as that, I've spent all the 4 years also on the finance committee. What I would like to see more often, however, this delves out a little bit, is actually start bringing a lot of this to the chapter level, so that the board governance, all the training for governance and what we do is available to the chapter members, and anybody that wants to come up through into the systems already has it. So when they join, they don't have to try to learn it like I had to, which now I'm pretty good at. It would be to already have it and be a hit the ground running type member. So that's all I can really say, because I've already had the training and I think I'm pretty good at it. Thank you.
Okay. And Steve, what about yourself?
I bring a new perspective, a different perspective, an outsider's perspective, if you will. I've also, as I've mentioned earlier, I've been trained as an accountant. I've been an auditor. I don't profess to be God's gift to accounting, but I can ask the right questions given a set of financial statements and financial records. That outside thinking and that perspective, I think, is very important, particularly at this juncture. Again, I mentioned the PERT and the PEAK and its new onerous requirements for bureaucracy, and this new strategic plan and its onerous requirements for bureaucracy. We need to keep a lid on it, and don't fix what's not broken. We got to stick to our knitting and keep in mind what we're here for. We're here to protect the public and make sure the public is protected from charlatans who would claim to be engineers. Thank you very much.
Okay. And Victor, what about your response?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I have been an engineering professional for almost 40 years. Also, I have been volunteering at the PEO SCOP chapter for over 14 years, and served all positions of the board executives, including chapter chair and chapter past chair. I have excellent decision-making and leadership skills. From 2010 to 2016, I was a member of a board of directors, YCC 324, a large condominium corporations in Toronto. This board is similar to PEO Council to perform governance roles in serving and protecting residents in the condominium. Thank you.
And Branislav, what would be your response?
Well, I do believe that based on what I have experienced so far, I can contribute significantly to FAR-PACTA implementation as well as inclusiveness. That would be very much in brief. Anyway, if I had the opportunity, I think I can be very, very contributive.
Okay. So our next question will start with Steve. And the question is, which of PEO's core values is most important to you and why?
Core values. Okay, the core value, I guess, is the integrity has got to be up there as a core value. Diligence has got to be up there as a core value. I believe that there's a toss-up between the two. I think that they're equally as important as brilliance. Perhaps brilliance is not as important as diligence and integrity. I think they're the important ingredients in a good counselor, a good board of directors, if you will. That's what the council really is, a board of directors of the sort for the PEO. So I think the best, the most important attributes are integrity and diligence. Diligence is hard work, the euphemism for hard work. I'm an enthusiastic person and a hard worker, I like to think. So I offer my candidacy. Vote Steve Shalazy. Thank you. How's that for a pitch?
And Victor, what about yourself?
Yeah, and I'm proud of being an engineer, and I think the public trust engineer because engineer provide the services and serving the interest of the public. So so I think this is a core value of an engineer or PEO. So which make the public and trust us. So I'd like to continue and volunteer and serve to the council of the PEO. Thank you.
Thank you. And Branislav, would you like to comment?
Well, PEO really regulates profession to the best of their abilities. It also prevents imposters and penalize them in a certain way. And I do believe it is still very honorable role in the public eyes when you present yourself as professional engineer. It gives some confidence to potential clients or the public. So I think it's well deservedly a reputation that each and every one of us should properly value.
Thank you. And Randy, what's your response?
PEO's core mandate is to serve and protect the public interest. We do this by upholding and delivering high academic experience and professional practice standards. I believe, however, we are falling way behind on our core mandate, just due to the sheer number of disciplines that have emerged. We used to have approximately seven, 35, 40 years ago. We now have, we're 30, 40 variations of all these themes that I don't know if we could ever hope to keep them all contained. But as far as I can say, our core mandate needs to get to the point where we can properly assure the public, because that's our group, that's who we report to, that everything we do is proactive. If we're a reactive group, that means somebody got injured, somebody was killed. If we're a proactive group, that means we stop people from getting killed or injured because of what we do. That's I believe my core mandate that I would do is that very thing, is make sure we do that first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to switch to looking at a past goal that PEO was part of, and where we go from here. So nationally, among engineering regulators is a goal by 2030 to have 30% of new licensees be women. So this question will start with Victor. So PEO signed on to this goal, and how would you direct PEO's role in this goal for the remaining 6 years?
Yeah, and I was the member of the 30 by 30 in the subcommittee SCOP chapter. Yeah, I think that this is very important goal set by the Engineers Canada, 30 by 30. So, and as a Councillor-at-Large, I want encourage the PEO and to continue and to have more work on the 30 by 30 subcommittee, and so they and also encourage the chapter and to promote 30 by 30 in the public, especially in the high school, and promote more as female students to study engineering. Also, and encourage in the university, encouraging more engineering students to apply for the PEO license. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Branislav, your response.
It'll be very short and brief. I do concur with Victor.
Okay. So over to you, Randy.
Thank you, Marissa. Yeah, I believe it's a great laudable goal to achieve, to try to achieve. If not one, I don't think we as the PEO could ever hope to achieve independently. This sort of thing has to completely go back to ensure the schools are getting, right from high school and back to public school, that young women are taking the core courses and want to go into engineering. I don't know the exact numbers, but 30% of the people in university right now are not female. So if we don't have 30% going into the schools, we're certainly not going to get 30% coming out of the schools. I would be happy if we'd hit 15 to 20%, because everybody should have the rights. And going out, we have a lot of young ladies where I work now as EITs and students coming through and groups, and I try to support them whenever we can. But I talk to them all the time, and they're just not there yet. Can we achieve it? I would think so, but it's not going to be in the next 6 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. And Steve, your response.
Yeah, first let me say my graduating class, industrial engineering in 1974, there were no women at all. We were all males. We had all races and colors, but we were all male. At the time, the dean had all the women freshmen, and there were some in the other disciplines, over to his house for dinner. There were that few of them. Again, though, that would have been the fall of 1970. Beyond encouraging women to apply and take an interest in engineering, I would propose to not do very much at all. They're welcome to apply. They always were. Trust me, we would have welcomed a lot of women in that class of 74 I mentioned, but there weren't any because they self-selected. They didn't apply, and they didn't have an interest at the time. I hope more of them have an interest now. But it's going to be driven by that whatever group you're talking about, be they women, men, races, all different races, whatever. It's not something we can drive. They got to be self-selecting.
Thank you, Steve. This next question is a bit of a continuation, and we will start with Branislav for the response. So in 2021, PEO Council approved an anti-racism and equity code, which included a next step to evaluate PEO's role in truth and reconciliation and to report back at its annual general meetings. So what do you think, starting with Branislav, what do you think council accountabilities should be to the Truth and Reconciliation's calls to action?
We should all be accountable for that. I mean, every individual, particularly in member of PO. The trouble is the burden of the past. So people don't forget it, they remember, they try to refresh it. But I think we also have, as Victor mentioned, we also have to actively promote that particular trend. Reconciliation, recognition, apology if required. So that'll probably, not probably, for sure, it'll help a lot. Again, very concise answer.
Thank you very much. And
Pleasure.
Randy, your response.
Thank you, Marissa. I believe this particular problem, and it is a problem, is far beyond the PEO's control. We accept anybody that basically comes to our door and wants to be a PEng as long as they run through the programs accordingly. We are talking about truth and reconciliation, of course, with our local native groups, not anybody coming in from the States or anybody from anywhere else in the world. So how do we take what we know now in the last, especially the last approximately 10 years, and get all these groups that have been underfunded, underutilized, underappreciated into the system, into the schools, where they can become good engineers. I have worked with a lot of natives from my area, and they're no different than the rest of us. They're bright, they're smart. They just happen to have a different unfortunate upbringing and other issues that they have to deal with. And once we get that solved, we'll have a lot more native engineers with PEO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephen, over to you.
Yeah, they're self-selecting. As Randy alluded to, basically stated, the people who want to be engineers, we stand to evaluate their credentials and apply them equally, notwithstanding any background. Now, having said that, we have to recognize people with different backgrounds and people who have been disadvantaged through no fault of their own. That can come in many forms, not just race or ethnicity. Extreme poverty can make it hard to become an engineer. Childhood background can make it hard. There's all kinds of factors at play and whether someone can pursue a career in engineering. So all we can do is be welcoming and evaluate the folks as clearly and as fairly as we can, without bias, without prejudice. Thank you. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. And Victor, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think PO, should have we should not allow any discrimination, and we should promote all races equal opportunities and for all races and all backgrounds of the people, and POI should promote the races and reconciliation, and so treat everybody equally. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to have about 2 more questions left. So this one, we'll start with Randy. Climate change is a significant issue facing the world's population, and net zero targets have been set in Canada for 2050. What do you see as PEO's role in protecting Ontario's environment and the financial interests of the public caused by climate?
PEO as a regulatory body has very little to be able to do about this. We've discussed this at length in varying meetings over the years. Can we encourage engineers? Absolutely. Can we? I mean, our job is not to set government policy. Our job is to try to deal with government policy as it's set forth. We bring the kids up. If the technology isn't there, we still have to live. We still have to be part of a system. If we still need fossil fuels, great. From a monetary standpoint, you cannot bankrupt the country in order to get to a net zero. It doesn't work that way, because then now we're a third world country. So there has to be balances in check. Is 2050 a goal? I think it's quite achievable. We're heading that way very quickly. But electric vehicles notwithstanding, we can't. If everybody had one, we can't charge them. There's a lot of issues that are going to have to occur, engineering wise, that we have to solve before we get there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Stephen, your response.
For the most part, Randy nailed it. I would say that the engineers are looked upon to provide a miracle. He mentioned that there's not enough electricity to charge up all the EVs. I think that sometimes politicians don't have a reasonable view of what engineers can do and the resources required to do those things. Again, I think that sometimes they think of us as miracle workers who can somehow develop a battery that provides an electric vehicle that charges in 15 seconds and has a range of 100 miles or 500 miles. I just sometimes I think that they got their heads in their sand and they just refuse to look at the reality of being politicians. But again, as Randy said, it's not our job to set policy. All we can do is certify that engineers know their stuff. That's pretty much our mandate, and that's all we can do. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Victor, your response.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, serving and first of all, and yeah, the PO is a regulator to regulate the professional engineering in Ontario. Also, govern its members and the certificate holders. So and yeah, we all, yeah, but however, and we also protect the goal is protect the public interest. So climate change and yeah, is a very important critical for the human beings for the world. So I think that yeah, PO probably also try to find some opportunities to do something and to fulfill the goal, yeah, for the world, yeah. So this is what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Branislav, your response.
Well, all we can do basically is to promote positive approaches regarding the climate change. I know for sure that federal government is very diligent in that particular way, but the others I'm not entirely sure. So the thing is, one group can promote and do its best regarding that, but people who really do not care basically can cancel all that work and effort. I'm also hearing the different inputs through the media. Maybe it's too late. Maybe climate change took too far in a negative direction. So all those things, I'm not entirely sure, but we still have to continue and perceive with the environmental friendly practices, installation.
Thank you very much.
And
Branislav.
see how much it'll go. Thank you.
Okay. So we've been talking a lot about PO regulation, public protection, and we're doing this because engineering is self-regulated, and all of you are running for to be elected to sit on the board to make these decisions, these hard decisions. So my question to all of you is, what do you see as the biggest threat to self-regulation as it pertains to PEO and the engineering profession? So the structure to which right now we're operating in governing and overseeing engineering profession in Ontario. So this question will go first to Stephen. Over to you.
Okay. I think the most important thing, I guess, that we have to worry about is the loss of interest on the part of the public, or not interest, poor choice of words, our ability to recruit. And I think we're, as I mentioned at the outset, we're at a crossroads here. The new PEAK program is not enduring for a lot of people coming into the profession. It's onerous, and it will become more onerous if the accountants are any indication. All training is worthwhile, let me say that, but some is more valuable than others. I think that there's a lot of value, for example, in learning the business that you're in, the technical aspects of the business, not just the accounting, or if you're an engineer the other way, learning a bit about the accounting. I think the real risk to it is that we go from 85,000 down to 40,000 members, something like that would devastate us, and it would be an indication from the public that we really don't need it. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. Yes. Victor, what about your response?
And yeah, the PO has a good reputation for the provide good services to the public. I think the big challenge for the PO is our services provided to the public. Because some of the engineers do not provide good service to the public. So, and in every issue of the engineering dimensions, we can see and some displaying of the members. So a council should address these challenges and by issue all licensed professionals are qualified, also against the licensed individuals. And so now we have CBD program, which will help the members aware of all responsibilities, also to improve the skills and to protect the public interest. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Branislav, your response.
I would say that PO as an association of self-governing regulated profession must modernize and adapt its role, following as an example other exemplary professional associations. So some changes should be done. It can be more specifically addressed. So I think it would help. It will contribute basically also to public interest, public safety, and PO itself. So if need be, I can be more elaborative, but that would be in a nutshell. What do I think of that?
Thank you. And right on time. So,
Thank you.
Randy, what would be your response?
I believe actually we and technology are our own biggest problems. We have seen many groups go under, things that used to be that are no longer here. If we have an engineer in a box, specifically AI, and a person online, they need to build something, they need to design something, and they go to AI and say, hey, I need this, and it shows up, we have no more value. So we have to continue working and demonstrating that engineers, not the PEO, engineers have value in society away from AI. Is this going to change? It's quite possible. We could drop from 85. We could grow. We could shrink. We don't know what the future holds. We only know that we have to deal with what comes before us as it shows up. And if we go away, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. If AI can do our job, or we're miniature, or we're a smaller subset of ourselves, that's the way it will be. But that's what I feel a threat is technology.
Thank you very much. And really, thank you, everybody, for your very thoughtful responses. This now will conclude the question portion of the meeting. And we will now give each candidate 90 seconds for their closing remarks. And I just want to acknowledge how much effort and time it takes to stand for council and serve on council. So thank you, everybody, for committing your time. So we're going to start with the closing remarks. They will be for 90 seconds. And the first one we'll hear from is Steve. So go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. And thank you for thank the audience for their participation and their questions, etc. And also for paying attention to us as we give our answers and our rationales. Much appreciated. Thank you. Now, I think, as I said at the outset, we are at a crossroads now in the PEO. There are things that concern me. I don't want to see $1,000 a year membership fee. And if the bureaucracy is allowed to grow uncontrolled and peak, is it allowed to be more refined, shall we say, and start offering courses, etc., and the like. I think that peak is a bad thing. I think that it shouldn't have been implemented without a referendum. I think a referendum would have killed it. And there's 51, as I mentioned, different disciplines listed on the PEO website. And as Randy said earlier, hey, they're growing. We got AI, we got all kinds of things coming. It's an exercise in futility to be leading edge in training for these items, for these issues. I believe the marketplace is the best place, is the best arbiter of discipline. We have to maintain quality, and we have to continue to be employable. We have to keep learning. And I think we all know that, and we all do it. And that's what's necessary to keep a job. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Victor, your closing remarks.
PEO Council needs a mix of new members and old members. As a new councillor at large and a volunteer at the PEO Council, I will act in the best interests of the PEO, enhance the PEO's mandate, raise concerns of chapters and members in the council and make a motion, continue to support the chapter activities, including education and engagement events, closely monitor new license application process, closely monitor the newly enforced continuing professional development (CPD). As I mentioned before, I have strong leadership skills and extensive engineering experience, as well as a long time volunteering in PEO. This will make me successfully fulfill the duties of a councillor at large. Thank you for considering to vote for me.
Thank you very much, Victor. Branislav, your closing remarks, please.
I will be very concise or laconic, which is my favorite way of talking. In my opinion, PEO is to be again the originator and not the follower. Once upon a time, about 35 years ago, I think that was the case. And also, I would like to emphasize that inclusiveness must be promoted or supported in all ways. That is very, very important area that should require a lot of attention, and not only attention, not only the words, but a lot of actions. That will help a lot. That would be my part.
Thank you very much. And Randy, your closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Marissa. I would like to thank everybody who is watching us live tonight and those who will be watching this in review in the next few weeks. I would like to say that if the PEO folded tomorrow, it will not affect my future. My job, which runs under the industrial exception, which I would really, really love to get rid of, basically says nothing to me because of my age and where I am in my profession, in my career. What I would like to see and why I join and why I spend the 700 hours a year, which is what approximately when I was the Eastern Regional Councillor, is to make sure that we have a place at the table with the government and the public, that what we do will ensure stability, that our country, our GDP stays up, that we have relevance on the world stage for both the members and our future members. We're no good if people don't have jobs. If we don't have a future, then if there's nobody to employ, then we're done anyway. The PEO folds. I would not like to see the PEO fold, but that is a future that I can't predict. So I am here asking you to vote for me, for what you've heard today, to ensure that we stay part of the future and the relevancy of which we have. This includes working with OSPI very closely, who is underfunded and needs more money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. So this does now conclude tonight's discussion. And again, I would like to thank very much the candidates for their participation, and also for those watching online for their interest in the governance of the engineering profession. And I hope you found the meeting to be very informative and worthwhile. So once again, your 4 candidates for Councillor-at-Large are Stephen Shoachi, Victor Lan, Branislav Gushkovich, and Randy Walker. And that's just in the order that their names were drawn tonight, no other particular order. So as a reminder, a recording of this meeting will be available on PEO's website for the duration of the election voting period. Thank you again, everyone, for participating in our discussion. And do remember that your profession does matter, and so does your vote. Voting is quick and easy. You can vote on the internet or by phone. Voting will open on January the 12th and close at 4 p.m. on February the 16th. All the information you need is on our website at www.peovote.ca. That's www.peovote.ca. So please join in the next couple of days, January 3rd, starting at 5:30 for the Western Regional Councillor and the Vice President all candidate meetings, and on January the 4th at 5:30 p.m. for the Eastern Regional Councillor and President-elect all candidate meetings. And good night.
Thank you. Good luck to all.
Good luck, everybody. Enjoyed the night.
Right.
Good evening.
Thank you.